petty gun trafficking. There is we enhance penalties for gun trafficking. Often you see states try to put up stronger laws for gun safety, and then other states around them, people buy guns there and then sell them elsewhere. So we raise the penalty on that. And the most important issue for this topic is $13 billion for mental health and for mental health in our schools. And so that'll be funding we'll be going after, like we already secured funding in each year for our Safe Schools Act. There are other pieces of gun safety legislation, school safety legislation moving through the Congress. There was a major vote just last week. A bill narrowly passed ban assault weapons in the United States. I was proud to vote for that. I voted for all three of these pieces of legislation, and I mentioned two of which have become law. This one, it passed the House and is in the Senate. Like with many of these bills, it'll be tough, but we got to try and we got to start somewhere. And it is a huge deal after we had an assault weapons ban in the United States from 1994 to 2004. And then Congress sadly let it lapse. And we saw, the modern era, the rise in these mass shootings that pain us more and more in this country, as so many folks going to the grocery store, kids in school, folks going to a nightclub like the Pulse nightclub shooting, folks just out downtown. And so we're hopeful this bill will pass the Senate. In the meantime, these other bills did pass into law over the last few years, and we'll be seeking funding. But we're seeing that in our local schools, and that whether it's an elementary, middle, or high school, you'll see a law enforcement presence. They're there to protect kids. They shouldn't be there to, obviously, they're not there in an investigatory role as much. It's there to make sure that we have a trained law enforcement officer on campus to protect our kids. And I appreciate Sheriff Lopez and Chief Odell on being great partners with our local schools on this program.
Thank you so much for that overview, Congressman. We appreciate certainly what you have done to advocate for gun safety, common sense gun safety measures and laws to protect our community. I want to we have some educators that are actually in the schools. And I would love for just an opportunity for a few of them to share perhaps any of their impressions or their experiences. I know that we have Minister Nicole Reed is on the line. We also have Sister Katrina is on the line as well. Both are career educators. They're in the schools. We know that Congressman Soto has to run to another event. He's been so generous with his time already. But if any of these educators would just like to share your experience, your impression, what has happened in the schools, any questions for our congressman, we just wanted to have this opportunity.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we could hear you, Katrina.
Okay, so I'm at Poinciana High School, and we have our active shooter training this Saturday. I've been through several of those trainings. My only concern after those trainings is because Poinciana is an older school. If anyone wanted to get in through the back way of the housing community, Blackstone, they can just pretty much jump the gate. And we have a resource officer in the front office. So by the time the cameras would look or find that person would already be on campus. And because some of the older schools are not updated with technology, that's my only concern, to get the older schools updated.
Absolutely, Katrina, and I understand, as you and others may know, my wife is an assistant principal. She was there for the last 3 years at Ventura Elementary in BVL, and now she has been moved by the school board to Eastlake to be their assistant principal. So we care deeply about this issue. I'm happy to work with our school board members to work to bring more funding down to help continue this upgrade. We bring down the money to the school board, and they pick which schools get the hardening money each year. You are right; it's a focus on older schools because a lot of the new ones, Lake Tehopa Caliga High School or others like that, have been upgraded. I'm glad to know that you have a school resource officer on campus. That is what the funding is for, as well as the cameras. But you're right; it's there is more hardening to be do for our schools, and we need to continue to bring down funding to do it. Sadly, we don't have enough funding to get every school all at once, but we'll keep fighting to try to get that.
Thank you so much for that response, Congressman. And it's a great question. Sister Katrina, thank you for asking that. We do look forward to having a follow-up town hall with members of the school board. We did reach out. There were some scheduled conflicts with that, I am learning, but we certainly want to do this again to ask specific questions like that pertaining to schools and sort of the budgetary agendas that can certainly be answered by them. So thank you for that response, Congress Soto. I did have a question, a follow-up.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, what can we do as local institutions, local organizations to help support some of these measures around common sense gun safety legislation? Is it writing a letter to our senator? Is it organizing a protest? In what way is it most efficacious for local people, local organizations, to let our voice be heard, that we are in support of these measures to keep our children safe and to keep weapons in the proper hands?
So there are a couple great local organizations like Moms Demand Action, which work very closely with us. A lot of moms across the nation have spoken up after seeing the tragedy of some of our children shot at their schools. I was in the Capitol on January 6th in the chamber, so I seen firsthand how violence can erupt. And so that's a great organization. You also have, as this funding comes down, even how it's allocated is an issue, because we're bringing down safe schools funding each year, and then the school board gets to decide where this money is deployed. And in addition, some of it is grants to our sheriff's office, and we work closely with Sheriff Lopez and Sheriff Gibson before him on those COPS grants, as well as Safe Schools grants to help with this. So I know the school board meets, I want to say it's every Monday or every Tuesday. So going to one of those school board meetings to talk about where that money should be allocated, as well as other funds that they have, is another great way to do that. Certainly, things like the assault weapons ban would require our senators to vote for it, because we have to. Since it's policy, it has to be bipartisan. Much like the modest gun safety reform we already just passed. It's difficult, but don't give up. We all are people of faith. I'm a Catholic. I know you all are obviously also have accepted Jesus Christ and are Christians of faith like us. And so we got to keep doing the work. I also wanted to take a few minutes before I go, Pastor Koinu, to talk about just generally what the federal government works on with our schools, so people get a sense of what we do versus the state and the school board. A little civics moment to help make you all informed citizens to help with these issues. So first, I just want to say it was great to see so many folks who are probably going to be watching this at some point at our Caribbean Heritage Month. It was great to see a lot of the church there. It's been a tough 2 years. I know I don't have to tell you, Pastor, and to others, and it's been that way also for our school. So in the beginning of last year, in the beginning of this term in 2021, we passed a major piece of legislation into law called the American Rescue Plan. And it brought back millions and millions of dollars to help our local school boards, our local governments, and our local colleges cope with all these things. Think about everything from personal protective equipment to making sure no teachers cops or firefighters were fired because of lack of a budget, making sure that our kids can come back safely, having enough vaccines around for every resident in Osceola, making sure we do everything we can do so that it allowed our kids to finally come back last year safely to school. In addition, I mentioned already, my wife is an assistant principal at East Lake, and I just got to go to her school this past week. I know the kids are excited, or the teachers are excited. We also this last year brought down Education Secretary Miguel Cardona. He's the top education official in the nation. U.S. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona got to go to Ventura Elementary and BVL and meet with kids and meet with our administrators, and he's working on key issues like school safety, like making sure we have an equal and inclusive school system, and making sure that American Rescue Plan dollars are being spent wisely. We also had NASA Administrator Bill Nelson go to our schools this year and brought 2 astronauts along with them. Those were school-wide events, so children from across the school district, as long as their teachers queued in, they got to see that. And just this morning, I toured 5 different schools in Osceola County, along with Commissioner Brandon Arrington. We gave away backpacks that are going to be given to students by administrators based upon need, as well as donating books from the Congressional Library. So we got to go to Horizon Middle School, Reedy Creek Elementary, KOA Elementary, Deerwood Elementary, and Chestnut Elementary. A lot of those are in Poinciana in Brandon Arrington's district. Our primary role as the federal government is to fund schools. So we fund the Title I program. Many of our schools are Title I, and not all of them, about half of them in the county, then half are not. This has and provides for the free and reduced lunch program and weekend food boxes that help so many families in need in Osceola County. We also help with funding for access for students with disabilities, ramps, so the schools are more accessible, extra teachers to help out with kids with disabilities. We also help out with the ESOL program. I know we have a lot of folks from many different areas, including from the Caribbean and places like Haiti and Puerto Rico, that attend the church, that Spanish or Creole may be their second language. So we help fund those ESOL teachers. I mentioned already the School Safety Act that we also work on, and the funding for the school resource officers. The last thing I want to mention is that we now have, with the American Rescue Plan dollars finally, since they've finally been spent, now you'll see half the schools go back to, if they're not Title I, where you have to apply for free or reduced lunch. This is the first time in about 2 years. So for those of you whose kids go to school in a non-Title I school, now you have to actually do the application again. And so we want to make sure people know that in advance, because we want to make sure no kid goes hungry in the school district. So you may want to ask your local teacher or principal. They'll be able to tell you. If it's Title I, then that continues to be applied to the whole school. But now half the schools won't have that anymore, and you have to apply. And so very important to apply for that if you need it, if you're a family in need. The other thing I want to remind everybody of is we have Kid Care. Kid Care is the health insurance you could get for your children through the schools. It's funded through the federal program called the Child Health Insurance Program, otherwise known as CHIP. That is a one-page application. It's a good deal. You could get it for just a few dollars, and if you qualify income-wise, you may get it for free, and your kids get health insurance. But it is a one-page form you have to fill out. And so I want to encourage everybody who needs to fill out the free and reduced lunch form should you need it for your family and you're not in Title I, because the last 2 years you didn't have to do that. And please, 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 those of you who are in need of health insurance, make sure to fill out the Kid Care application for your child. You can ask for it on the first day of school. You could ask for it on Parents' Night. You could ask for it any day of the week, any school day of the week from administrators, and they'll get that to you. But Kid Care and the free and reduced lunch applications, very important. The last thing I'll say is through the new infrastructure law, there's a clean bus program. And I have encouraged, and I'm pleased to say that Osceola County will be applying for, our schools will be applying for clean electric buses. It starts small. We may get a few of them right away, but the goal is over the next 10 to 15 years to get all these gas guzzling, diesel spewing buses off the market, and clean our air more, and protect our earth with clean buses. So I'm hopeful, and we'll be working hard in Washington to get the clean bus grants and bring cleaner buses, cleaner air, and a better planet back to Osceola County. So thank you, Pastor Queno, for having me, and thank you so much to all of our dear friends at Solid Rock Virtual Sanctuary Church here tonight. And I also want to thank Officer Barrio for being on the line and for what you do to help protect our community. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I know that Mrs. West mentioned that there'd be a picture moment.
Sure. Let's do it.
Yes, absolutely. Miss West, I don't know if you want to take the picture, but I don't mind taking it as well. We're glad to have our Congressman with us. All right, I just took a few pictures there. Thank you again for your time, Congressman. And we will continue on, but we appreciate all of the information. Definitely, we appreciate the overview of really a systematic overview of how the federal government works for us. So thank you again. Take care.
You bet. Thanks, Pastor. God bless all of you. I'll see you soon.
Take care. Officer Barrio, thank you again for being on the call. I really think that you can be incredibly instrumental in even perhaps answering what seemed to be a tactical question around what role does the resource officer play, for instance, in the question that was raised by an educator earlier about the school resource officer being in front of the building and there being concerns about the back of the building. What are some of the security measures and procedures that are in place by the school resource officers and law enforcement in general to ensure the protection of our kids and our educators and our administrators?
Well, first, I want to thank Solid Rock Church for the invitation to discuss this matter, and for Congressman Soto for his continued support of law enforcement, especially school safety. As far as what we do and what we can provide, every year we do what's called the school safety assessment, where we have a unit, dedicated unit that goes out to the schools, and they do an assessment of each of the schools that we have either a school resource officer or guardian, which are going to be all of our elementary schools, charter schools, and high school. So throughout that assessment, we'll address certain things such as what was discussed. Obviously, if there is an assailant, a suspect who does enter the premises, our school resource officer and or guardian is there to face that threat. Fortunately, because of the size of our city limits, our response time is very high, or low, I should say, rather, as far as having officers and additional resources on scene to assist with anything that arises.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much, Officer, for that response. I hope that was helpful to the earlier question that every school, just so we're all hearing you right, every school has a safety assessment. So the potential areas within the school are already reviewed and plans are implemented to ensure a fast response time, and preventative measures are also put in place for each school. Is that correct?
Yes, and I can only, just keep in mind, I can only speak about the schools within the city limits of Kissimmee, not the county as a whole. I do not want to speak on behalf of the sheriff's office and what they do, but I can speak on behalf of what we do. I did supervise our school resource officers for a short period of time, so I have some basic knowledge as to what their roles and responsibilities are and the importance of school safety.
Okay, excellent. What can parents do? I know parents oftentimes feel like once they kiss their kids goodbye in the morning, that all, control, a sense of control, all sense of protection is gone. What can and what should parents do, and what should students do to be a part of or have an agency within their own protection within these schools? Do they have a role? That would be helpful to us.
I think as far as the parents go, and I understand because I have older kids as well as school age kids, one of which attends school locally. So it's just as important to me as it is to the parents bringing their kids to school here. As far as parents go, and I understand giving up that sense of responsibility at any point to the SRO, their school officials, is difficult to do. The most important thing is that they allow law enforcement, in most cases, to do their job, and for us to respond appropriately. Obviously, that's our responsibility to do so. I understand parents are going to want to go straight to the school. There will be, in the case of an active assailant situation, there will be information disseminated telling parents where to go to avoid schools being bombarded with cars and parents, because obviously we need to make sure we have our resources available and within the confines of the school and the surrounding areas.
Thank you so much. I saw a question in the chat, and if there be any questions, if you can just indicate that you have a question by raising your hand, we'll take about 2 or 3 more because we want to be respectful of Officer Burial's time. He's been incredibly generous with his time as well, and we know he has a demanding schedule. There was a question in the chat that I saw regarding what are the differences, if there be any, between a school resource officer and a guardian. We sort of wanted that clarification, please.
Well, the biggest difference as far as the guardians go, they do not act in any law enforcement capacity. They do not have arrest authority to detain, interrogate, or question a subject. They won't have vehicles, handcuffs, or police radios. Everything they have would be to keep the school safe, as well as communication within the school and the school officials there. Whereas law enforcement, a school resource officer, obviously will have, or they will have communication with school officials, as well as a police radio and all of the authority, law enforcement capacity authority.
Thank you so much. I did want to follow up that question, particularly, Officer, in our community, we deal with sometimes a dual experience with law enforcement. We certainly have the utmost respect, and we have several law enforcement members that are part of our church community, a part of our family communities, and we celebrate and respect and appreciate the very important work that law enforcement does within our community. We don't have an antagonistic relationship with law enforcement, but we do also understand that there is some data that supports that the presence of school resource officers has in some instances precipitated some criminalizing of students of color, that there's higher rates, for instance, of students of color having negative run-ins with school resource officers or with guardians than their white counterparts. And part of what we want to do is we want to do our part to make sure that we are raising children that are respectful of adults, respectful of law enforcement, follow instructions, follow directives. while also ensuring that we're advocating for our kids and our community and our students to make sure that there isn't any discriminatory practices going on with our students. In what way are school resource officers trained, if at all, to deal with students, to deal with students from different socioeconomic backgrounds and statuses that may not have a privileged experience with law enforcement? How can we bridge that great divide? Because we want to see unity between our community and law enforcement. We don't want to see any kind of antagonism at all.
I think the quickest way of answering that is we strive here at the Kissimmee Police Department to humanize the badge and understand that we are all different. We come from all different backgrounds. I myself grew up in an inner city in the Bronx, and I can tell you, based off of my experiences and things growing up, that it would probably be a little easier for me to associate with some people versus others who may not have been raised in such an environment. But nonetheless, both our guardians and especially our law enforcement officers receive hours of diversity training. And it's important for us as an agency, keep in mind, the guardians are not employed by the city of Kissimmee, but in order for them to partake in the security of the schools, they too have to receive such training. And I've been with the agency now for 22 years, and I can say, in my experience, and I think many others, we've always had a very good relationship with the community and those around us.
Thank you so much, Officer, for answering that question. And I think you being on this call is certainly proof positive of the department's desire, and certainly Chief Odell's desire, to bridge that relationship. So thank you for being here, and thank you for answering that question. I do want to open it up if there are any other questions before we let our officer go. At this time, please raise them. Okay, thank you so much. Officer Barrio, if there's any closing remarks or any statements that you would like to make to our parents, our educators, our students, please go ahead and give your final remarks now.
I do. On behalf of Chief Odell and our agency and City of Kissimmee, I want to thank you again for the invitation to be here. This is part of the opportunity to bridge that gap, as you stated, and humanizing the badge, and having people understand that we're a lot more than just a uniform and a badge. We have family that live here. A lot of us live within the city limits, and as I stated, I have my own child who attends school here within the city limits. So it's important that we understand we're not just a law enforcement agency. We're parents, brothers and fathers and sisters and church-going members. So I do want to thank you for that part of it, and we're here to help. So if there's anything we can ever do as an agency, anything I can do as an individual to help the community, help you and the church, please feel free to reach out to us, because we'll always be here for you.
Thank you so much. We certainly appreciate those sentiments, and we believe them to be genuine. We want to reciprocate the appreciation. Please let Chief Odell know, and really the entire administrative team there at KPD, that we are grateful. You all have answered every call We're grateful for our liaison, Minister Nicole Reed, who really does a great job of connecting us with your department. And I can certainly say every time that we have reached out, you all have been responsive and you have always been attentive to the needs of our community. And so we certainly want to celebrate you and your community. So please carry those sentiments back to your department as well. Thank you all for being with us. We stream to YouTube, and we'll also post this recording on Facebook. This concludes our forum on Thursday night. We're grateful for this information coming to us straight from a federal official, Congressman Darren Soto, as well as a law enforcement official, as a parent, as an educator myself. I know I certainly feel better being armed with this information, to the procedures and the practices that are in place to ensure the safety of our students, our educators, and our administrators. We will keep the conversation going, and hopefully we will continue to be united as a community. Thank you all for your time. Everyone have a blessed evening, and we'll see everybody on Sunday for our backpack giveaway, our time together. Pastor Mark is trying to give me an announcement. Go ahead, Pastor Mark.